Hi everyone, and welcome to Jane Talks Trek, where I'll be talking about and reviewing an episode of the original series, The Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, or Enterprise. Today, I'm looking at The Defector from The Next Generation's third season, or as I like to call it, that time Picard had his sassiest pants on. This episode was requested by Nimbim. Thank you for the suggestion, and today I'm joined by Nerd World Empire. Yay! So let's get going. We begin the episode with Patrick Stewart and his big pointy weapon spouting nonsense to Data, who talks about the king.
Well, we indulge a little Shakespearean in the holodeck here. I should point out that this man here, to Data's right, is a man named Simon Templeman. He is the real-life husband of Rosalind Chow, who plays the on-screen wife of Chief Miles O'Brien in this, Keiko O'Brien. They're actually still together now, which is great to know, and now you know.
What are you doing, Picard? Oh, apparently Data is rehearsing, but freezing the program doesn't freeze the fire. That's probably a hazard. A call from Riker reports a craft in the neutral zone, so they leave the holodeck. Please take off that awful hair. And Data asks if he can put on a performance for the crew sometime. Riker reports that the craft is Romulan, and its pilot hails and asks for asylum as it's being pursued, and into the credits we go.
Hello there. One of the things you may not know about this episode is it was actually co-written by Ronald D. Moore, the man who would go on to some fame for the reimagined Battlestar Galactica series. The reason I mention that is you can't help but notice that while the Romulan warbird is pursuing the scout ship, it's actively trying to not destroy it while making it look like it is trying to destroy it just enough to fool the Enterprise into protecting the scout vessel, and then the warbird will withdraw. There is actually an episode in season 3 of Battlestar Galactica where the Cylons chased down a man called Mad Dog, who was a colonial who got caught by them years earlier. He's now escaping while being pursued by the Cylons. They are making it look like they're trying to shoot him when actually they're trying to let him go but make a good show of it, so the colonials believe that he's escaped and that the Cylons are actually trying to destroy him. Just saying, there's some continuity of writing here.
I've never seen Battlestar Galactica. Any good? Let me check out the cast. Oh, it's got that lady from Lucifer. I love that show. And Richard Hatch? Isn't that the guy from Survivor that kept getting naked? Anyway, they go to Red Alert and Picard yells at the pursuing Romulan ship, but they don't answer. So they call the pilot of the craft instead, who asks for help before the feed cuts out. And Picard tells Geordi to extend their shields around the little ship. Picard cusses the big ship out, so it sods off.
Romulan warbird withdraws without argument. That's not suspicious at all, leaving them with their scout ship.
Okay, bye then! With the scout ship's power and life support failing, Picard orders the pilot beamed aboard and the ship towed. Hi there! Nice power shoulders! And despite being injured, this guy says he has vital information which cannot wait. Wait, I know this guy! He was Jatrell in the Voyager episode of the same name, and he had a small recurring role in Murder, She Wrote.
Just to zero in on the gorgeous little scout ship created for the Romulans in this episode, Star Trek done a Star Trek, and they would go on to reuse this model out of universe, and as usual, kind of hope you don't notice, the first major reuse of it was actually into the Romulan science vessel, which aesthetically and in every other way actually makes a great deal of sense. It shows a continuity of engineering and design in universe, but in reality they just kind of plug and played a couple of little pieces, turned it around so it was going the other direction, added an extra bit and said this is the Romulan science vessel, we'll pretend it's a little bigger than the scout ship. Bit of forced perspective going on, and then later, with a bit of a respray, but pretty much no other change other than making it brown, this went on to be a Nisari vessel.
Personally, I think it looks like the love child of Yoda and Thanos. Bet you can't unsee that one now. You're welcome. Picard voiceovers that Cetal has detailed information about a secret attack.
Also, yay, Andreas Katsoulis is in this episode, making his second appearance at this point as Commander Tomalak of the Romulan Star Empire.
Ooh, I know him too! He was in the Enterprise episode Cogenitor, appeared in the Diagnosis Murder episode The Plague, which I covered on one of my other channels, and voiced Scree in one of my favourite video games of all time, Primal. Riker doesn't believe this bullshit, so Picard suggests Cetal get some rest. Ooh, I love this picture! The boys discuss if a base could actually be built in the neutral zone without them knowing about it, while Data points out the Romulans like to test their enemy and lure them into starting a war.
It's always a game of chess with them, isn't it?
Picard wants Geordi to check out the scout ship, while Riker and Troy question Cetal.
This will depend on establishing the truth.
Ooh, that made me jump. Cetal admits he set the auto-destruct so the Federation couldn't get their mitts on his technology, but is nice to Beverly. However, Worf is hostile and suspicious of his knowledge for such a low-level clerk. Cetal winds him up by insulting him, so Riker sends him to go deal with his security stuff, before taking Cetal to his quarters and leaving him there, where he pulls a tiny doodad out of his pocket. This will not be mentioned again. Picard and Data search for the base before an important call comes in from Starfleet, telling Picard that the Romulans are pissed that he has Cetal, and while Starfleet are holding a meeting about it, shit is most likely to come down on his head. Thanks for that. Geordi gives a little presentation that shows that the Romulan ship slowed down so as not to catch the scout ship when it was damaged, so this could all be a setup, and Cetal could have injured himself. After another message from Starfleet, Picard orders a probe, but first asks Data to keep an impartial record of events in case things go tits up, and then quotes Shakespeare, because why the hell not? Riker and Troy interrogate Cetal, who gets pissy as Worf gets a phone call from the Klingons, and Data launches the probe before he discusses with Geordi the best way to deal with the problem and if Cetal is telling the truth or not. The probe picks up something unusual, so they report it to Picard, who stares into the distance, and Data stares at Cetal, who comes over for a chat. He complains about the stars and then the booze, before pining for home, which he will never be able to return to. To cheer him up, Data takes him to the holodeck, but he doesn't want to look at it and announces he's actually Admiral Giroc. But I'm going to keep calling him Cetal for this review. Starfleet confirms it is him and he's a very bad man, so Picard calls him in and tells him he doesn't believe him or his motives.
The Romulan Defector is almost a contradiction in terms. But Admiral Giroc crossing the lines?
Cetal tries to convince Picard he's truthful, but Picard establishes he's not willing to help them to betray his own people.
You're a traitor! Now, if the bitter taste of that is unpalatable to you, I am truly sorry. But I will not risk my crew because you think you can dance on the edge of the neutral zone.
High five! Cetal gives a passionate speech about how he wants to change the world for the sake of his daughter and all children, and Picard reports to the others that he has provided him with a lot of tactical information, so they rush off to the neutral zone where it's all currently quiet. They get to the planet where the base is supposed to be, but they detect nothing except for the unusual readings the probe picked up before, so Cetal is brought to the bridge where Picard yells at him, and he's very confused. Picard establishes that Cetal has been lied to by the Romulans, and this is all a loyalty test, but Cetal doesn't want to hear of it.
They let you escape with an arsenal of worthless secrets. What other explanation is there?
They go to get out of there, but 2 Romulan warships show up and fire, before calling them to be all smug and threaten to destroy him, and Cetal is very put out. Picard tells Thematic to shove his threat up his ass and sasses him right before 3 Klingon warbirds decloak. Ha 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 ha! Suck it, that guy!
You will still not survive our assault.
You will not survive ours. Shall we die together?
Thematic decides to head off, Picard tells Worf to thank the Klingons, and Cetal laments all he has lost in this pointless exercise. We end the episode with Beverly discovering he's ended his own life.
Okay, so this entire episode is basically analogous to the Cuban Missile Crisis. Basically, both sides of this Cold War conflict between the Federation and the Romulans don't trust each other very well. They both have their secrets. Romulans are known for their subterfuge, their lying, and the art of manipulation. The Federation doesn't trust Romulans. No one really does. And this entire episode is just perfectly encapsulating that. Some people would argue that the episode is too decentralized, that there's not enough focus on any one person, but I think it gives every particular character enough time to shine in their own respective roles, reflecting their own personal views on the Romulans, the conflict, and everything else. And we get to see it from the Romulan side in the form of Admiral Giroc, who is now defecting not because he is a traitor to the Romulan Empire, but because he is a patriot and he knows that the Federation and Starfleet is not as weak as the home propaganda and the Tal Shiar would have you believe. And he does not want to see the Cold War turn hot. He doesn't want to hand over secrets. He blows up his own scout ship to prevent the technology of the Romulan Empire and information within its database falling into the hands. He is going to selectively give Starfleet enough information to prevent a war but not give them a tactical advantage. Neither side really wants a war. This all turns out to be smoke and mirrors and was little more than a loyalty test by the Romulans to see what he would do and perhaps to see what the Federation would do with this particular piece of information. To maybe, could they push that boundary? Maybe Starfleet and the Federation would do nothing. That's just speculation though on my part.
Well, Nerd World Empire is way more on the ball than me when it comes to the essence of this episode, so I'm going to look at it from a different angle. This episode reminds me of the Deep Space Nine episode Duet for a multitude of reasons. Both are not my kind of episode, they're quite serious and make you think, whereas I prefer the more light-hearted ones. However, I do have an appreciation for them, as they're well written and well acted with a lot of meaning behind them. Both episodes feature a person from a race that cannot be trusted, who gives information that may or may not be accurate, with unknown motives, before the characters find out that the person is someone else entirely, someone in a position of power, who ends up dying because they were trying to do the right thing. Both episodes show good character growth for Kira in Duet and for Picard in this one, as he struggles to work out if he should risk his crew, risk war, based on uncertain information. And he has some fantastic lines throughout the episode, too many to include in the review, so hard recommend to watch this one for yourselves. I can see why this episode has such a high rating, and I liked that between Geordi's theory and Data's theory was the truth. Cetal was telling the truth, but the information he was giving wasn't truthful. And he really did look so dejected that he'd been lied to when all he was trying to do was the right thing. Gutted for him, and the ending made me sad. Damn Star Trek, leave my feels alone.
So there you have it. That was The Defector.
If there's an episode of Star Trek you'd like me to cover, pop it down in the comments below or come say hi on social media. If you enjoyed this video, then please hit that like button, it really does mean a lot, or consider subscribing if you want to be assimilated into my channel. Alternatively, feel free to check out my other YouTube channels. And please go over to Nerd World Empire, check out his content and give him some love. Thank you so much for watching, I'll speak to you soon, and
Live long and prosper.